I'm honored. Thank you for your kind introduction. I'm honored to be here to give you a talk. I think that we all realize we are living in interesting times. Whenever you turn on TV, you see national leaders say crazy things. This is, it hasn't happened for a long, long time. The last time the world was like that was like in the 1930s. The reason for that is because the global consensus is broken. There's no global consensus anymore. After 1989, the whole world agreed on globalization, trade, economic development, a rising tide lifting all the boats. That was the consensus, a rising tide lifting all the boats. But in the last couple of years, lots of people in the world are saying, the tide is not rising under my feet. I don't like it. That's the source of the troubles today. A lot of people don't like it anymore. So what do? They elect the leaders to create trouble for everybody. Yeah. They don't want the leaders to take care of things and make everything peaceful. They want their leaders to create trouble. So more and more leaders like that could be coming. So this is the trade war between China and the United States is a symbol of that. Is it good for anybody? No. It's just that when you're angry, you want to vent the steam. You want something to happen. So you make other people feel bad. Somehow you feel good for yourself. That's what's going on. That's what's going on. So the trade war has been going on for 1 year. For 1 year. And at every step of the way, it's always chaotic, no plan. So if you think any leader in the world knows what he's doing, it's not correct. Now, we all know Trump doesn't know what he's doing because he's tweeting every day about something else. Okay, every day is a different idea. But all the other countries, I think, is the same way. Nobody knows what the future is like. So you are doing something. You are making things up along the way. So, what's the impact of that? Now, there are business people here. The businesses hate uncertainty. When you have uncertainty, businesses postpone investment. And investment is over 20% of global GDP. So when investments get postponed, the economy slows down, global trade slows down. That's what we are seeing now. If you feel the economy is slowing down, it's because of that. Okay, last month, China's exports fell significantly. It's been a trend. So it's been a trend. I think that this is sorry. So yeah, this is really it's been going on for oh sorry. So this is a chart of China's trade, and China's trade basically mirrors the global trade because China is the largest center for global supply chain. So everything made in the world somehow goes through China. So when China's trade is slowing down, it means the global trade is slowing down, and that means must be investment slowing down. But so far, because the consumption still hasn't slowed significantly yet, because employment all over the world is still okay. Employment is okay. But this is what we are now is a confidence crisis. And a confidence crisis is going to cause the businesses to pull back. The good news is that it may not get worse, because Donald Trump is signaling that the latest tariff was not very good. Why? Because the stock market nearly crashed. So one thing that Donald Trump is scared of is the stock market. You just watch. Every time the market moves down, he comes out, he sounds nice. He starts to talk nice, right? He's not aggressive anymore. Then when the market is rising steady, then he goes at it again. Yeah. When I was asked for advice on how to proceed with the trade war, I always thought China could make the stock market go down and Trump would compromise. But why wouldn't China want the stock market to go down? Because it affects domestic confidence. So this is where both sides are scared of confidence, confidence crisis. In China, the stock market has been weak for 2 years, and the property market has been very slow. So now lately, the exchange rate is also depreciating. So the Chinese government is also worried about a confidence crisis. So at this point, both sides don't want to take more risk. Because if you take another step forward, put more stuff on the table, trying to win the trade war. If you want to win the trade war, you have to do something nasty. If you do something nasty, the confidence can collapse, then your whole house can collapse. So this is why both sides now want to take a step back. So that's the good news, is that you're not going to hear Donald Trump to raise tariff again. Okay, so this where we are now, maybe the worst. We have 30% tariff on $250 billion of Chinese goods, and 15% on $300 billion. So certainly not low, but not going up much more. And China has depreciated the exchange rate by 15%. So for businesses, actually, in the short term, they can handle quite a bit of the tariff increase because of the depreciation. Now, the bad news is there's no solution inside. So this thing can drag on for a long, long time. The two sides are talking about negotiations again in October. So some people are very optimistic, say we're going to have a breakthrough. Don't believe it. There isn't going to be any breakthrough. From China's perspective, in the short term, the most important thing is the October 1st National Day. Chinese leader is putting on a big show. They don't want Trump to tweet something crazy on the National Day. So they throw a bone at Donald Trump and say, oh, we're going to negotiate in 2 weeks' time, and maybe something good will happen to you. So Donald Trump will hold back from texting something nasty. So that's, for Chinese government, that's the short-term thing they like. No, National Day celebration, let's not mess that up. So then afterwards, let's see. So so I think that it's why I don't think there's going to be a breakthrough. It's not just a trade war anymore. There is it has become a whole strategic competition or strategic rivalry. There is consensus in the United States now that China is the United States a rival to the United States, at least a rival. May not be enemy yet, but we don't know how long before it gets there. So right now it's a rival. So if it's a rival, you have to fight in a way. There is a consensus in the United States that the key to this rivalry is technology, not a trade per se. It's technology. The U.S. must keep a commanding lead in technology. That's how the U.S. can sustain its dominance in the world. So you see that separated from the tariff thing, there is a technology embargo. The U.S. is putting Huawei on the ban list. Huawei cannot sell in the United States, cannot buy components from the United States. They're putting a bunch of supercomputer companies on the restricted list. And this thing, I think, is only getting started. So for China to sign a trade deal, it must include technology. If the technology restrictions stay in place, just taking off tariffs is not worth that much for China. That GDP is GDP. If you have a little bit more GDP, so what? But technology is about moving forward. It's the trend. It's the growth. So the GDP may be a level. So the growth, this thing is much more important. So China is actually putting stuff on the table, trying to ease the technology ban. So China believes in the power of money. Chinese people believe in the power of money. So they think that Trump will kind of, when Trump sees money, he will compromise. So China says, I can spend $200 billion buying your stuff, like agriculture products and energy products, a lot of money. But you have to do this for us. But the U.S., Trump cannot decide on technology anymore. But the U.S. Senate has already signaled it may pass a law on the technology bans. So once the Senate passes a law, the president cannot just take it off. It's not possible. So this is why I think that it is no longer Trump's game anymore. It's for the United States, it's a whole societal game. It affects the whole political system. So this thing is here to stay. This is, I think, will define our lifetime. The rivalry between the United States and China. Why do we have this rivalry? Nobody can is giving you a clear story. Trump cannot give you a good story. Chinese government cannot give you a good story. Sometimes you hear this is the clash of the civilization. Sometimes you hear it's a power. It's about a power. Who's number one, right? So there are many arguments. I think the most important thing is a national model. China is developing an alternative model for running a country. That model is very different from the Western model. The Western model, as defined in, some of you may remember, after 1989, there is an American philosopher who wrote this book called The End of History by Francis Fukuyama. He basically said that the end point for human history is the Western model, liberal democracy with open markets, okay? But and China, everybody assumed China was going that way. It's just a matter of time. We're going to have more liberalization, and markets will open more. It's just China needs time to get ready. So eventually they'll get there. That was the assumption. But in the last few years, China said, no, I'm not going there. Yeah, I have my own model. It's the China model. What's the China model? Government on top forever, not market on top. Okay, so this is for people like in modern times, we tend to forget history. This is basically the traditional Chinese imperial system. In Chinese imperial system, the ownership, there is no real ownership. Today in China, there is no real ownership. You have usage right. If you have a house, it's for 70 years. At the end of the 70 years, the government can decide if you can keep it or the government will take it back. So there is no ownership. Historically in China, the emperor owns everything. Everything in the country belongs to the emperor. What you have is for your keeping for the time being. Until the emperor says he needs it, then you give it to the emperor. Today, it's the government. So the government is emphasizing to the market. Whenever the government needs you, you have to work for the government. Whenever the government needs something from you, you have to give it to the government. So that's the Chinese system. What's the advantage of the system? What's the advantage of the system? Chinese government says it works. Why? Because think about it. A lot of countries now have inequality. People fight over wealth. In China, if the government thinks inequality affects social stability, the government will just take money from the rich and give it to the poor, just like that. There is no law. The government can do it. So the wealth in the Chinese system is not permanent, it's temporary. So wealth inequality can be solved easily. They think that's the one advantage, right? Long time ago, someone now who is at the very top guy told me, in China there will never be a Li Ka-shing. There will never be a Li Ka-shing in China. So nobody should have too much money. If you have too much money, you think you are powerful, then you become trouble for the government. You see? So this is another advantage the Chinese system has is the government can decide to build whatever it wants, it gets built. So this is, you look at the United States, the infrastructure is crumbling. The government is still talking about spending $3 trillion on infrastructure to rebuild the infrastructure. That's $3 trillion in total. In China, every year, China spends over $2 trillion on infrastructure. So even though China may not be such a rich country at $10,000 per capita income, but infrastructure gets more and more infrastructure, brand new everywhere. So you go to China, you think that this country is really, really developed. So basically, it's not the market priority. It's not the people's priority. It's the government's priority. The government says, why? Consumption. What's the good of consumption? You eat, it's gone. Okay? If I build something, it's here. So this is the government's view. So that's why China looks so different from any other country. Everywhere you go, so much stuff is going on. Always building. So you go to India, not much is going on. But people now spend a lot of money. In India, consumption level is very high. So it's a very, very different system. So this is where not only China said, I got a good model. China wants to introduce this model to developing countries and help them develop with the Belt and Road. So this is where I think that's why I don't think Belt and Road is going to work very quickly because other countries are not China. So the people who live in Beijing, they think that Central Asia could be developed like China. They are daydreaming. So in Central Asia, if you want to build something, man, it's going to take forever. So I think that, but now I think that the Belt and Road project is for the long haul. The government knows it's going to take a long, long time. Other countries are not like China. The government cannot just say, I want to do this, it gets done. It's not like that. Only in China you can do that. In other countries you cannot do that. So this is but still, nevertheless, Belt and Road is hitting at the weakness of the West. The West has neglected the infrastructure development in the emerging economies. You look at I used to work for the World Bank. The World Bank used to be about infrastructure. Then it turned into poverty alleviation. Now, poverty alleviation is very well-meaning. You want to help people. But the issue is that if you do not have roads, you do not have power plants, how can the economy thrive? If you help people, you say, you're hungry, I gave you something to eat. You're a kind of person. But next year, you have to do it again. So how are you going to help people to be self-sufficient? So this is where I think that China really has scored a big point. Infrastructure is the key to economic development. Economic development is mostly construction. Yeah, if you do not have construction, you don't have economic development. And China happens to be very good at construction. All you need is to allow Chinese construction workers to come in, and it happens. but unfortunately, a lot of countries don't like it. They think Chinese workers are coming to take their jobs away. So it's not that easy. So the United States at this point also has a lot of insecurity. So the combination of China coming out with an alternative, and the United States has insecurity. Americans have doubt about American power, American strength. So this insecurity is also leading to some policies, I would say right now, containment policies. So this is there are containment policies trying to slow China down. That some people think like that slowing China down is a policy objective. So that I think why it means that the rivalry between the two is still going to last for long time. So how this thing is going to pan out? What I see is that one possibility is that global trade will become two worlds. One is around China, the other is in the West. You look at, for example, you look at 5G, Huawei. Now, why Huawei is gaining? Because Huawei, we're talking about technology, but also we needed to talk about the cost. Huawei's technology is 30% cheaper, and in many ways better. So it is gaining market share. That's how price mechanism works. If you offer something similar at 30% less, you gain market share, right? Now, so Huawei has been growing because of that. Because Chinese engineers, China produces far more engineers than the United States. So engineers work for less. It's a supply and demand. So China can produce technology goods at a lower price. That's just a price mechanism. So America and the United States think this is a strategic issue. You need a policy containment. So price mechanism does not work there. So these containment policies will lead to Western countries adopt higher priced 5G technology, while developing countries don't have the luxury to adopt the higher priced technology. So you can see the world is splitting into two. Huawei becomes a dominant player in emerging economies, and while Ericsson and Qualcomm they become Ericsson, Nokia, they become the main suppliers for developed countries. So this sort of, I see this is kind of a 5G is a metaphor for how the global trade could turn out to be. You look at mobile phones. Apple makes iPhone for $1,000. Okay, maybe Chinese companies make a similar phone for $500. Then Europe and the United States say Chinese companies cannot sell phones in the United States and Europe. So the phones there cost $1,000. But the same phone would cost $500 in China and in other emerging economies. So this is a bifurcation in global trade is quite possible. And it of course slows the world down. Once you have the world split into two markets, the global economy will slow down. When China trades with rich countries, China grows faster. The reason is because the people in rich countries have more consumption power. They can pay more. If you trade with the poor countries, you get less, so you can grow less. So for both China and the West, they will slow down. The global economy will slow down. So in the 1990s and in the early 2000s, we had like a 4% growth in the global economy. Now we're entering a phase. It's more like 2%, 2 to 2.5%. So that's where we are headed. I think where we are headed. Now so how? Let me mention a bit about the possibility of next recession. The next recession, it really is about consumption. The consumption depends a lot on the stock market. That's the relationship is the other way around. Usually we say economy is good, stock market is good. Nowadays, the stock market is good, the economy is good. When the stock market is bad, the economy becomes bad. So that is the kind of relationship we're seeing lately. So if you want to know is the recession coming or not, just watch the U.S. stock market. If you see the U.S. stock market coming down 30% and stays down, a recession is coming. So you don't need economists to tell you. You just need to watch the stock market. This is touch and go. This is touch and go. If the U.S. stock market, and the politics depends on a lot on that. If the U.S. stock market goes down, Trump is gone. No more Trump. So it's a weird world. Trump is trying to keep the stock market up. If the stock market stays up, Trump stays, I believe. Even though that a lot of polls show that Trump is losing, but actually I think that if the stock market stays up, Trump will win again. So we have another 4 years of Trump. So, sorry, maybe it's difficult to move around. It's just, I just talk. This, in my view, is another Cold War. The Cold War, we know the Cold War is from the United States against the Soviet Union. But this time it's different. You look at the Soviet Union, it's like Russia today. What's the strength of Russia? They are very good at making weapons. They are very good at making weapons. What's the weakness? They're not very good at doing business. Yeah. So Their problem is economic efficiency. But on the other hand, you look at China. Chinese people love business. They love money. So China will not be like the Soviet Union. China will be producing a lot of stuff. There's not going to be a shortage problem. So the Soviet Union had a shortage problem. China will not have that. But on the other hand, China is not so good at making weapons. So this is a sort of even though China's economy now is $13 trillion, China's military actually is relatively small. You look at the arsenal of strategic weapons. China may have like 300. The United States has 8,000. 8,000. China has 300. How this is going to evolve in this century is going to be very interesting. I don't like this kind of a competition. But Chinese people, what's Chinese people's strength? Chinese people are very flexible, and they're very flexible. So whenever there's adversity, they try to manage it. They come back. China's weakness historically is military, not very strong, and essentially China during a long period of peace, Chinese military tends not to perform very well. Only when you have many years of war, then the military improves. So in the last 200 years, every time there's a conflict, Chinese military initially suffers a lot. Then it has to take a long time to fight back. So this is very different from the Western culture. Western culture, the strength of Western culture, we talk about science and technology, or lots of things, is military power. You look at how the West rose. It was about military power. And the military power was not about so many people. It was about organization, about some people working together. So this is very kind of civilizations are quite different. So China's strategy, how to fit into the world, has to be really carefully thought out. You know, Deng Xiaoping said, let's keep a low profile. Anything goes. Let's just fit in. Yeah, just don't say too much. This is yours. This is mine. Oh, we are all together. How about that? So that was kind of Deng Xiaoping basically said, doesn't matter if it's a black cat or white cat. If the cat is mice, it's a good cat. So let's not talk about a red or white or blue or whatever. No. Now it's increasing. We're talking about which side you're on. So as soon as you talk about which side you're on, you are really laying the groundwork work for confrontation. So so this is I'm not sure this kind of a world is that good for China. What's good for China? Is open markets and peace. Chinese people are very good at doing business. If we have global peace and open markets, China will become richer and richer. Think about it that like 150 years ago, when the British came, they thought so many Chinese people, they're going to buy our stuff. We'll be rich. Let's open Chinese market. Then they opened the Chinese market, then they lost money to Chinese. Even though Chinese people didn't have much industry, the Britain ran huge trade deficit with China. So see, because when you have a money-making opportunity, everybody in China works really hard. They just love money. So in the West, you have money because you want to have a good time, so you can go out and have a good time. In China, you have money. Why you want to keep the money? You want to keep the money. You want to count the money, and the more money you have, the happier you are. So China becomes richer and richer and richer. If we have a peace, we have trade, China will become richer country. Then the government does not need to do much. That does not need too much. That's the nature. So this is where now is I think war confrontation not very good for China. So China, this I think would be a good opportunity to rethink. Now a lot of people in China are rethinking about do we need to really say black and white, us, you and us? Maybe it's not working out so well. It's not working out so well for us. Yeah, it's not working out so well so for us. So I don't know if China is going to change it back or not. But the current approach, I think, leads to slower economic growth. And what's the problem with slow growth? Slow growth, in theory, is not so bad. You look at Japan. Over the last 30 years, Japan has not grown much, but quality of life is very good. Yeah, quality of life is very good. But the slow growth in the case of China and the United States has a problem: debt, too much debt. Any company with a lot of debt knows you must have growth to sustain the debt, to maybe have the debt cut down over time. Debt. So China now has 300% of GDP in debt. The government says 250%. Most of international institutions say China has 300%. If we have 300% debt, if we're going to grow very slow, like a low single digit, you're going to have a debt crisis. So this is a reality. So I think that China has to think about some changes pretty soon. Now the temporary policy is to devalue the currency. You can let the currency go down to take the blow. But if the currency keeps going down, you have inflation. China's social stability is always about inflation, not about employment. A lot of people say that China is about creating 10 million jobs. That's totally wrong. China's labor force is contracting, not growing. There is no need to create jobs. And there is a labor shortage in China. So the stability issue in China is inflation. If we have inflation, like now pork price has doubled in the last year. It becomes a big social problem. Yeah, if the price keeps going up, you're going to have a social stability issue. So now the media stories are reporting Chinese government is number one issue for Chinese government is pork, not Hong Kong, not a trade war. It's pork. So Chinese vice premier is going around the country to see who's raising pigs. I say, who's raising pigs? Can we give you some subsidies to raise more pigs? That's the Chinese government approach. That when the price is too high, they go out to subsidize production, try to get the price down because the government has money. So this is I think that the danger of making the currency depreciate to take the blow. If you have inflation, then you have a social problem. So China always had an inflation problem until Zhu Rongji came in 1994. Yeah, today you see China has a lot to do with Zhu Rongji. Zhu Rongji said, we cannot have inflation. We must have efficiency. So that's why we need to restructure the economy. Okay, we don't take the easy way out. We have to solve the problems at its root. That's efficiency. Restructure the economy. So, but usually Chinese government doesn't think like that. They always try to think of a short-term fix. Like right now, currency going down 15%. I'm feeling okay now. But then tomorrow something else pops out. So this is sort of I think that it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that the world has taken a turn like that. The world does not have to take a turn like that. Chinese people are quite kind of neutral, and they don't confront the world. They absorb the world. China is like a sponge. You hit China, and it goes in. then the pool it bounces back. Then something is kept behind. So Chinese civilization is an absorptive civilization. It's not a fist like a Rome, like a Britain. China, the cultural advantage is to absorb, to integrate. China is the real melting pot. That's the way forward. So how can China fit into the world? A lot of people say China is too big. So we don't like that. But if you become the world, then it's okay. So 20 years ago, I had wrote an article. I saw this problem of China integrating into the world. Such a big guy, how are you going to integrate into the world? 20% of the world's population. You become the world. China builds global cities, like 30 global cities, with 30 million people each. Every city is run pretty much autonomously. They're all open to the world. They compete among themselves. China will become fabulously rich. And the people all over the world will go to China for opportunities. Then the world becomes China. Why would you want to fight China when you are already in China? Yeah? That 20 years ago, I thought that was the way out for China. Now I think that China has been not going down that path. But eventually, I believe, China has to go back to that. No, when China was prosperous, China was accepting people from every place. You look at if you go to the historical museum in Xi'an during the Tang Dynasty, people from all over the world came to China. It was really the center of the world, and that's how a big country can have peace. You give opportunities to everybody. You don't think like us and them. You are too big. If you think like that, then you create waves everywhere. You think us, them, then China going out to try to negotiate with a little country, say, I'm going to try to squeeze you a little bit more. If you think like that, the whole world is going to blow up. Yeah. So it's really about being wise, accepting. I want China to open the labor market to let people all over the world to go to China to work if they want to. Yeah, so I think that's how we're going to eventually have a world peace. If China is not a country, that's the key. China's modern history was defined by this thinking that China would try to be like Germany, like Japan, like Britain. China is not that. China is an empire, not a country. You cannot think like a nation state. You cannot think like a nation state. If you think like a nation state, you want to fight. When you talk to a little country, you say that I negotiate. We're equal negotiation. How could it be equal negotiation? It's not possible. And if you want to squeeze Thailand, there's nothing Thailand can do about it. You see. So you have to know that if you squeeze another guy, there will be consequences for you. Yeah. So that's to run an empire, you need wisdom. Yeah, wisdom. It's not like a bigotry, like us versus them. So I hope eventually the world comes to that. Or if China insists to be like a country, to fight others, you know what is going to happen in the West? The West will coalesce into a country. That is the only logical thing that would happen. First, Trump wants to buy Greenland. Many people think it's a joke. It is not. The United States could have, not just Greenland, the United States could have integrated Canada into the United States. Yeah. And eventually, even Russia may join the United States. Then what do you do? How could that be good for China, right? Whatever China does, there will be a reaction because you are so big. You have to think about how other people are going to react. Think about what Zhu Rongji said in 1998. I advised the government to devalue the currency because everybody devalued. If China did not adjust the currency, China would have deflation because everybody would be selling in China. You know what Zhu Rongji said? If we devalue, then other people devalue. Where does it end? And we're a big country. If it doesn't stop in China, how is it going to stop? Yeah, that kind of thinking led China to this huge rise over the last 20 years. So this is sort of this is a moment in history, a key moment in history, is that how China can get into the world without causing a war. Then war would be terrible. Now today, like it's with new weapons coming, really dangerous, very little space weapons, no time to react. No time to react. So we have no arms control treaties. So everybody can do whatever he or she wants. So we're heading towards a dangerous world. We're heading towards a dangerous world. And if there's a war, it's in nobody's interest. Nobody wants war. So, but a war happened many times before. Why did it happen? It's just, when you get on a slippery path, it's very difficult to reverse. You just, step by step, everybody walks into a trap. So this is every country needs, China and the United States determine the future of the world. If they cannot think through how to work together, we are living a very dangerous time. And the business world cannot provide a prosperity, create jobs, once you have this kind of a huge uncertainty hanging over your head, right? So I think that over the next couple of years, it's going to be cautious time. The stock market is going to struggle, I think, for many years. So I don't think that the markets are going up anymore. What's going up? Gold. Think about it, what I'm saying. What I'm saying is like all kind of a very uncertain, something bad could happen. So gold is already up 20%, and maybe gold is pretty good, So a lot of people are holding on to U.S. dollars now. Is U.S. dollar good? I don't think so. Americans love to print the money. Anybody who likes to print the money, it's not good. So what currency is good? It's actually Japanese yen. So what currency is good? You always go into a country, you say, do people love to spend money? If the people love to spend money, that currency is not reliable. Yeah. If you go into a country, you see people are very cautious about spending money, that currency is reliable. That's why I think a Japanese yen is reliable. If you think the world is coming apart, you want to hold on to some cash, what should you hold on to? Japanese yen, not the US dollar. One day, Americans are going to inflate with the US dollar because they have so much debt. And the dollar is the world's reserve currency, and they can print the money if they want to. So you have to eat it. That's why they're going to print the money. So this is why I think that dollar is not such a great asset. Yeah. Okay. So I think that no, in the short term, it's not getting worse, but the uncertainty will be with us for a long time to come. And maybe now I think that I'll stop here, and it's already been a long time. And do we have time for questions? Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sia. Very insightful and lively. We have a few more minutes for questioning, but let me ask you first question, which is on everybody's mind. What's going to happen to Hong Kong?
Well, Chinese don't like to confront, even though people think that the Chinese government is so powerful, they're going to crush you. Actually, they don't like to confront. Usually, when it comes to something difficult, Chinese usually like to let it burn out. They just they drag it out. Drag is the word, drag it out. So the assumption is that the people who protest, they cannot keep going forever. First, they need the money. If they don't work, they have no money. How can they keep going, right? The second, they get tired sooner or later, right? And they need to get some sleep. So that's the idea, that count on these guys getting tired, and then eventually they go home. Just like in 2014, 5 years ago, Occupy Central, they lasted for what? For 70 days. Eventually, Occupy Central was difficult because they camped out. They camped out in Central, and they had to get food. They had to go to bathrooms. So eventually, the government got all the shopping malls to lock up the bathrooms. So people eventually got fed up, but they had to go home to go to the bathroom. So that's why it dissipated. I expect that maybe it will ease off over the next month, but the problems in Hong Kong are not solved. I've been talking about Hong Kong's problems for a long time. What's Hong Kong's problem? It's housing. The housing market in Hong Kong is controlled by a few companies. These companies control all the land in Hong Kong. The land that they can build 400,000 flats, but they're building only 10,000 each year. So it's like squeezing a toothpaste, a little bit at a time. Why? They want the price to be so high. Why? What's the price? Because in Hong Kong, there are a lot of investment bankers, hedge fund guys. They price the property against these guys. Yeah, you get a bonus, I'll get your bonus if you want a place to stay. Yeah, so every little property is worth millions of dollars. Every little place is worth millions of dollars. But for the average people, they don't have bonus. So what do developers tell the little people? Okay, you make 5% as much as a hedge fund guy, right? You get 5% of the property. So they develop this nano flat, like 120 square feet. It's like a parking lot size. And you're going there. That's your home. And it costs 10 years of your income. Then, of course, you cannot get married. You cannot have children. So if you don't get married, you don't have children, you have lots of time to go out to protest. So because you have nothing to do at home, you don't want to go home. It's just such a small place. You're outside all the time anyway. So Hong Kong has no stability unless you solve the housing problem. Only stability is possible when people find it affordable to have a family. If having a family is affordable, you have social peace. If you squeeze people to the extent they cannot have a family, trouble forever.
Thank you, Dr. Xie. You really provocative view, straightforward. Anyone in the audience want to ask Dr. Xie a question? Maybe we allow one question. But we already have a pre-reception, and Dr. Xie tell us a lot of things, so things going to be fine in Hong Kong. Oh, Dr. Prasan, please.
I would also like to express my much appreciation of your very lively talk. One interesting point among many others is the new Chinese economic model, open economy with government, imperial government on top. Not long ago, shorter than half a century, we observed very impressive, successful development in China, turning from centrally controlled economy to a much, much more open economy.
Yeah.
Particularly when China joined the WTO, World Trade Organization, and flourished from this globalization and so on. But now you are starting to talk about this new concept of economic model in China. Can you share with us some of these current thought on the salient features of this model
Yeah.
compared with the previous
Yeah.
model? Particularly being mindful that you're also graduating from economic school from the Western world, and also have engagement with institutions like Morgan Stanley. Do you believe that this new Chinese economic model will have good prospect into the future?
The new model idea has happened because of technology. Because nobody believed that the central authority could control a vast economy like China, so many people, until digital technology happened. And suddenly, people at the top realized they got a tool to control everybody in China. So now Chinese emperor can be the real emperor, because why? You can really watch everybody. Yes, the Chinese emperor was in theory was in charge of everything, but he could not run anything. But now with the technology, the new model is around technology. For example, it started with debt collection. In the United States, if you default, you go to the court, somebody will come to liquidate your assets to pay off the creditors, right? But in China, there are over 10 million people who have defaulted. Gee, if you go to collect, it takes forever. So what do? They put your name in the computer. You cannot fly. You cannot ride the high-speed rail. Make life difficult for you. So if you want to travel, you take the slow train. Yeah, you take the slow train. So in China they have found that because of technology, they are trying to cut the management cost. It's not black and white. It's making life is a little bit more difficult for you. So you voluntarily to pay off the debt, right? Because your life is just too hard. So first they don't let you take the high-speed train. Next they don't let you take the low-speed train. Okay? Then tomorrow they shut off your mobile phone payment system. You go out, you cannot pay money anymore. Your money is not good anymore. So the market economy is like before money, everybody is the same. In China, everything depends on you. If the leader does not like you, then your money is not so good anymore. And your mobile phone is not so good anymore because of the technology. If they want to punish you, first they slow down your mobile phone. You see? They slow down your mobile phone. And do you get the message? So the Chinese system is about self-regulation. Chinese emperor always had very few mandarins. China was run by like 10,000 mandarins in the history. So many people. So Chinese governance is based on psychological warfare, make you self-regulate. Now they have the technology to deliver, to make it good. So in the Western, the system of rule of law is black and white. If you violate the law, you go to court, you go to jail. If you don't violate the law, you kind of free, right? China wants to slice these things into many, many, many pieces. It's maybe the heart of that is social credit system, right? They got these 640 million cameras everywhere, looking at everybody. So it's not about the law. It's just that your behavior is not so good. Okay. So if you jaywalk across the road, the computer picks up. It's like when I was driving in Shanghai. Inside of Shanghai, in the ring road, you cannot honk. You can honk. If you honk, you get punished. So when at the traffic stop, one day I saw a guy before me wouldn't move because he was looking at the mobile phone, even though the traffic light was turned. and I could not beep. So what did I do? I flashed the light. I flashed a few times. Is it the guy got a message, right? When I got home, I got a message on my mobile phone. Irregular use of light. Pay 200 RMB. So China is developing this system to control everybody's behavior. So to deliver a society that the leaders think is a good society. Now, what are the advantages? What are the advantages? This country will have virtually no crime. Okay? Now, used to be like everybody is pickpockets everywhere. You have to watch out. Nowadays, even you leave the bag somewhere, actually it is not getting taken away. Because if somebody takes it away, the camera is looking at you. They can catch you very quickly. They can catch you very quickly. So the government says, look, I'm delivering a harmonious society. What do you want? You go to America, someone banned, maybe you could get a shot. But on the other hand, what's the downside? You have to watch out everything you do, everything you say. Because, the government is really listening to everything you say. So nowadays, if we sit at a dinner table, we have a conversation, we look at each other. When we say something, we hold back, So eventually, Chinese system can deliver efficiency, I believe. It's like it's like Singapore, but is that the right system? Now Americans talk about value, then that is the crux of the issue. It's a value issue. What's the meaning of life? Is the comfort. Like Lee Kuan Yew said, gee, you have a good life. What to complain? But zoo animals are very comfortable, So zoo animals are very comfortable. They don't have to fight for food. But is that a good life? So the society we're heading towards is like the whole society becoming a zoo. Yeah, everybody is in a cage. Mentally. So it works. But eventually, what is the for? Is it worth it?
Thank you, Dr. Xie. I hope when you come down, you won't get a message in your phone that speaking ill of China, 1,000 renminbi. Fine. If there's no more question, may I ask the audience to join me in a big round of applause for Dr. Addy Xie for his very insightful and provocative talk tonight.